You kicked him out when he needed your help. You arrested him when he had nowhere to go. Then you beat him like a dog in the streets. Do you know who that man is, Sheriff?
Some sort of drifter?
That's John Rambo. He was the greatest soldier I've ever seen. Years of combat experience to hone his skills. And then we took him to Vietnam. He learned things there. How to survive in the jungle when everyone is chasing. How to hunt. How to make traps to kill his enemies. How to block out the pain when the going gets tough. He can blend into any surrounding and kill anyone in his way.
He killed one of my men. Just because he's valuable to you isn't gonna save his life.
I'm not trying to save him. I'm trying to save you. He got Johnson!
You can't hide forever.
I can't see him! Oh, fuck.
Don't push it, or I'll give you a war you won't believe.
Rambo 5 has just been released. Let's try and figure out why. The first film, Rambo First Blood, came out in 1982, meaning the majority of fans are probably dead. So it must be a great franchise to carry on through 4 decades, I hear you asking? No, they are far from great. Let's start from the beginning, because that is by far the most competent film. John Rambo is a Vietnam veteran visiting one of his army buddies, to then find out he's died from cancer. He then gets kicked out of a very American town called Hope because he looks like a drifter. To give a bit of a history lesson, the Vietnam War was a very unpopular war. A lot of this is to do with the media coverage, as for the first time you could see dead people on the morning news while you're eating your cornflakes. This is very different to World War II, as the only coverage we got then were some fucking poems. Roses are red, violets are blue. This war is shitty, especially for Jews. Rambo tries to stroll back into town like a persistent wasp at a picnic, only to get arrested by the main antagonist called Teasel. Not a very threatening name in my opinion, since it has the word tease in it and almost sounds like tickle. Well, I know who I've got my money on, the Italian stallion with a wicked cool knife that can do anything. It's got a sewing kit, matches, the knife part. It's fucking sweet, but unfortunately, I can't have one because the British public can't stop stabbing each other. Once in jail, he starts being a really awkward dickhead, refusing to do everything the police ask of him, which is how people end up getting shot. When I have a run-in with the police, I'm as polite as anything, mainly so they don't search me and find the drugs lodged up my arse. They spray him down, getting him nice and wet before they shave him to make him look presentable. Unfortunately, this causes a literal Vietnam flashback, making him go apeshit on the pics, doing some sweet testicle kicks and face rubs. He makes his escape on a stolen motorbike with Teasel not far behind. He pops a sweet wheelie and does a red jump into a field looking like some X-Games shit. This is refreshing to the car chases we get today. Real stunts are usually a lot cooler than this impossible nonsense we call the Fast and Furious franchise. He runs for a while as he fell off his bike and reaches a cliff, but since he doesn't have a set of wings stored in his knife, he has to instead go down. Helicopter comes, starts shooting at him, jump into a tree, throw rock, kill a guy by accident. These are very simple scenes with equally simple cinematography, as everything looks so flat and bland. It's blander than the dishes served in Kitchen Nightmares.
Bland.
But what isn't bland is this stunt, as it actually broke one of Stallone's ribs. And that's a rare thing for an actor to do, their own stunts. Obviously Tom Cruise does all of his, though he's a fucking lunatic. After sewing up his arm, which according to my dad is real, but I never found any evidence of this, he confronts the police saying that death was an accident. The best thing to do in this situation is shoot him in the head. It's the kindest thing for him. Now for the sequence of events I call Rambo attacking the police in the woods for ages. Of course, that starts with killing a dog. If you want to be on the audience's side, it's always good to kill a dog. Oh, wait, no, that's the complete opposite effect, as dog deaths are always tearjerkers. Think about I Am Legend, which isn't a great film, but the first thing anyone ever says about it is I cried when the dog died. Nobody cried when Will Smith died, depending on what ending you saw. Maybe this is just one of those changes between people now and people 4 decades ago. They were just okay about killing dogs back then. The police push forward, a few get stabbed by stuff, they shout the name Will, then Rambo wins by intimidating the sheriff. They regroup to be met by Troutman, the army colonel who made Rambo. He delivers some wicked cool lines, but who gives a shit about them when we could just see some explosions? Basically, they found out he was hiding in this mine shaft, and the only solution they could muster up is the most American solution. Now trapped in the mines, Rambo must find his way out of there, but in doing so he comes across a few rats. Kinda loses his manly facade when he freaks out about a few little rats. But then again, I can't really chat shit, as when I was watching this scene, I was attacked by a butterfly that flew into my head. He makes his way out through this hole in the ground that he is very lucky they didn't find first, as it would turn into a really deadly whack-a-mole. He steals a military truck, turning this film into GTA as he gets in a police chase, drives through their attempt to stop him, then blows up a gas station, which is like catnip to anyone who likes explosions. At this point, I'm on the side of the police. Yeah, they beat him a little bit, but he shouldn't have been a dick at the start. Now he's just being a fucking vandal for the shits and giggles. This all leads up to a dramatic showdown against Teasel. Well, I guess it wasn't that dramatic then, but we do get to see a dramatic performance from Rambo, and we finally get a good bit of character work from him. We get a little story about one of his friends in Nam being blown up, which is very sad. Explosions equal sad. Now in this film he didn't actually kill anyone, except that guy in the helicopter, but he sure did stab a lot of people. That's got to be worth a lot of jail time, which would have been a real interesting direction to take these films. After all, you would suspect with the title First Blood Part 2, it would be carrying on after the events in this film. Well, you're wrong, because what happens is they skip ahead 5 years. They move him into Vietnam to do some super secret mission, meaning nothing in this film even matters. In fact, the original ending had Rambo die, but it pissed off some audience members, resulting in 4 cash grab piles of homeless drifter spunk that we've been tricked into calling films. If I was to sum up First Blood Part 2, I'd say it's kind of a gay, generic 80s action film. The gayness comes from all of the shots that linger on this dim, buff, sweaty dude, which I think is a perfect metaphor for this film. Lots of substance on the outside for you to look at, but then you sit down to realise it has fuck all to say. And when it does speak, it's fucking nonsense. He gets sent to Vietnam to do a recon mission to find prisoners of war, which is already a bit weird. Why send Rambo on a recon mission? Because he's hardly subtle. He makes his way to the camp but can't resist being the hero, so tries running out of there with only one of them. He only manages to make it out with one of them during the night, which is astounding to me. He must have just sat down for ages because he didn't get very far by the time the sun came up. A helicopter comes for them, but the pickup is aborted since the Americans are corrupt. It all links back to how they shouldn't have gone to war, but the time for protesting and forcing the message down your throat has probably passed. Rambo is therefore captured and the revenge story begins, though I think films like this need to accept the fact that the story sucks, then just get to the explosives. As soon as it slows down, I start falling asleep, only to be rudely awoken by a big boom. Then because I was asleep, I'm in a bit of a daze, and I think I've woken up in a war in Neil Patrick Harris's mind. I was even more confused when I woke up to see Russians in Vietnam. So they want to add to the genericness, as it's always Russians as the bad guys. Then they add to it even more with a torture scene involving a huge Russian with that haircut, followed by a protagonist telling the antagonist he's gonna kill them, beats up the Russians and runs away. If I was that Russian, the moment he said that cool line, I'd point the gun at him and be like, "What are you doing? That's not what I wanted you to say."
I'm sorry, I thought it would sound cool.
Then I'd shoot him in the kneecap to teach him a lesson. During his escape, the woman he was with dies, but nobody cares about her since she had almost no character. Though it was just enough character to start a rampage, and boy does he kill a lot of people in this bit. Now what I find annoying about this scene is how low they decided to go. You didn't need to go close quarters in the helicopter. You're not trying to stab him. Wait for him to surface, then shoot him in the back like a sensible person. Otherwise this shit will happen. If he didn't get into the helicopter, all of these people wouldn't have been blown apart. But we don't care about them because they ain't American. He picks up the prisoners and the big bad Russian comes after him in a bigger, badder helicopter. The back rotor blows out, bringing the helicopter to the ground, completely immobile and in perfect position to be destroyed. Now instead of just staring at him, you fire your fucking rockets. Although technically they should have all died from the rocket launcher, since the force that comes out of the back of one of those things would obliterate the men sitting directly behind it, because science. It's just a little detail, but it's noticeable. How was he flying again? The back rotor was destroyed, hence the spinning. Did the writers forget after a few seconds? I doubt he can fly all the way back to the base with a fucked up helicopter. Oh, he does. He lands with no trouble whatsoever. He shoots some computers, threatens to kill this pussy, then walks off again while game music plays and the credits roll. Fuck, that was awful. I hope the next one's good. Fuck, that was even worse. The third film starts with a bit of stick fighting, but already I can feel the film is trying to trick me into thinking it's cool. Every swing they take makes 3 contact noises, so the fight should look like this. Instead, looks like this. Stallone is too big for fast attacks, which is why he's best throwing people about or wrestling. We're then treated to this dramatic stare-off, where both characters look intensely at each other. How the fuck am I going to take this film seriously when it opens like this? Colonel Troutman visits to give him a mission, because of course Rambo is the only one who can do it. However, he refuses. Would be weird if he never did this mission, and we just follow his journey as a stick fighter and handyman. A little while later, we see Troutman in Afghanistan get captured by a stealth helicopter. You know, one of those helicopters that don't make sound until you see it? Rambo hears about this, so straight to Afghanistan with him. I do appreciate the swiftness of the story. Remove the shit parts and give us what we want. I have no idea why this is a part of the film. I don't know if there's a deeper meaning behind this dead goat version of Polo, but I'm glad I've watched it, as it gave me a very confusing sense of enjoyment. Unfortunately, the match gets called off because of a helicopter attack. Would have been amazing if he hurled the goat at them. Generic action then ensues, resulting in a few dead Afghans, dead helicopter pilots, and a sweaty Rambo. It's good to see him making a difference in this war-torn country. He invades the enemy base via the minefield, since they won't expect them to do that, for obvious reasons. We get a few close scrapes intermittently cutting to people getting tortured, just in case you didn't know these were bad guys, but you obviously did, since they're Russians again. He finds Troutman and then nearly throws a knife into that kid's face. How he managed to get in the base without being spotted, I have no idea. Then they get spotted anyway, so explosions happen, people die, and Troutman was never saved. Didn't really go to plan, plus they had to crawl through a river of shit.
You mean sewer?
They regroup in the cave so they can send the kid home, since he's been a fucking nuisance this whole time. He hands over his necklace, which is supposed to give him luck, and as you can see, it's been working. He was very lucky when he was beaten by those police, and beaten by those Russians, and beating his meat in a porno. Looks like he's still doing porn work, but this time it's real masochistic. He enters a new base and makes his way through a few Russians, including this big one with a flamethrower that spits fire about as much as a deodorant can, so he can rescue Troutman, even though I had no idea they moved him here. The pair steal a helicopter with a group of prisoners, one of which falls out, only to get shot in the back, but I don't know who he is, so I don't care. The chopper is shot to the ground, though fortunately it crashed rather gracefully, as opposed to... More generic action happens, including a helicopter explosion, again, stabbing Russians, again, saying a call line to the antagonist, again, bow and arrow kills, again, explosive arrow kills, again, fight with a big Russian, again, but we do get this A-class kill. Was pretty cool. I don't know how they're gonna follow that. What am I saying? It's so obvious. Big explosions, people riding horses, big guns that kill fast, more explosions, then steal a tank and drive it into a helicopter that for some reason is playing a game of chicken. Like, what the fuck kind of tactic is that? You're Russian, not Japanese. Fuck this film and fuck its fucking repetitiveness. It even ends the same way, where he just leaves the battlefield, credits roll, and they play some lame music. Let's watch the next one, shall we? We start with news footage of people dying in a war-stricken country, which already shows how this film is going to be generic. Why even bother with the cliched news coverage when you're gonna do another opening scene? This opening works fine on its own. We get to see the main bad guy, who we know is bad because he kills probably innocent people in a sadistic game of dodge the mines. But at least he doesn't use real blood. We then get a third opening scene, which is just a montage of a clothed caveman doing stuff. Catch snakes, shoot bow, catch fish. We're then introduced introduced to a white man who has a mission for Rambo, just like the other 2 times this has happened. Rambo says no, so the woman in the group tries asking by using her womanly charm, and he says no again. We cut to the bad guys doing a bit of casual murdering and kidnapping, then cut straight back to the old man doing some sweaty manual labour. Nice to see they've toned down the gayness a bit. Actually, they've toned it back quite a bit as we now have a wet woman with character. She asks for his help again, and it finally works. 3rd time's the charm, although does it for free. I guess that's the power of pussy. He mentions he was in Vietnam because let's face it, the fans aren't watching this film as the original came out 26 years before this one. They carry on with the journey and get attacked by pirates that are obviously in the mood for a bit of raping, but unfortunately for them, Rambo has already claimed his territory. Why'd you do that? We want to help this country.
Fuck you, dickhead!
They arrive at some camp, we hear this stock sound effect, which annoys me every time. Then they immediately get attacked because I guess that's part of God's plan. Oh my god. What the fuck? Holy shit! That was great. Not in a cool way, but more of a holy shit that was excessively violent to the point of it being really funny to me. I really appreciate it when a film has the balls to kill a kid on camera. And I'm pretty sure I saw a kid get thrown into a fire. Plus with the shitty blood after effects and explosions, it just made it funnier. Keep this up and we have a parody film on our hands. He even gets another mission from another white guy. Holy shit, is this film self-aware? Probably not, this seems like it's supposed to be cool. We meet the mercenaries that are tasked in rescuing the white people, and it's a quick efficient bit of dialogue to introduce the types of men we have here. The dick, the hick, the other 2 dicks, and the nice guy who will probably spend the most amount of time developing. The boat gets to shore and Rambo tries to join the mission, but I wouldn't let him join. He's very old with no gun, just a bow and arrow. They walk through the woods for a bit, come across a bomb, which is obviously going to be used later, see the camp with a few gruesome corpses, including a dog, which shows the bad guys mean business. Then some more bad guys turn up to play the dodge the mine game. Ever since they introduced the bow, they can't help but bring it back. Why would he even be trained with a bow, since I doubt he used one in Vietnam? The group invades the camp while the bad guys have their sexy dance abusive smoky rape time, and I think they show the sexy dance abusive smoky rape time to make sure we know these are bad guys. We've seen them brutally massacre a village, but the raping is the cherry on the top. Wow, the main bad guy appears to be gay. How progressive of him. Although he is a paedophile and a rapist, and it does seem weird that the only gay paedophile rapist is the main villain. Is this film trying to add on him being gay as a bad thing? Probably not. I doubt this film has any deep meanings behind it except war is bad. All the mercenaries except the nice one leave because Rambo is taking too long to save the girl. What the fuck was that shit? He just ripped that guy's throat out like it's fucking Mortal Kombat. This is the shit I want to see. Give me more. Wow. The top part of his head just flew off. That was amazing. And good job that happened as Stallone just jumped on top of the girl, which I'm pretty sure wouldn't save her from a hail of bullets. Also, the shots would have stopped the main antagonist Kitty Diddle time, which would have infuriated him. Why did they use a dissolve here? And then again, well, that was weirdly unnecessary. Daytime arrives, so the bad guys see they've been fucked in the night, but just like the second film, they don't make it very far. They had a good few hours lead on them, but managed to get cool. Although this group are forced to slow down as Bald Dick steps on a mine. At least they have an excuse since they have to make a stretcher instead of doing the sensible thing, which is put him down like an unwanted dog. These 3, however, should have got to the boat by now. It took them until night time to walk there, so with a light jog, they should be close. Rambo separates from them so he can lead away the bad guys, then he sets up a trap for them. It's a good job they were close to this unexploded bomb. Let's just hope it still works, it's very old. One, that explosion looked like it belongs on the Sci-Fi Channel, and 2, if the explosion could topple these trees, he would die. We see the others being beaten, just in case you didn't realise that they were the bad guys, then they are about to be executed. Luckily, Rambo is in a convenient position at the perfect time to decapitate this guy, obliterate these 2, then fire at all of these people from an excellent vantage point. What a stroke of luck. Now for the segment I call, let's see how many gruesome ways we can show people dying. scene isn't very good. It's all shot on handheld with bad CGI, but they hope you won't notice, which is why they shake the camera a bunch. But it sure is funny, as I don't think head explosions like this is something anyone can take seriously. Plus, the generic music adds a little bit more comedy to me, as it feels like a parody. They even end with him walking away with lame music, then the credits roll, the same as the other films, which is something a parody would do. God, what a breath of not entirely fresh air this film was. Hopefully number 5 follows the same direction. Now, I haven't actually seen the last one yet, but I've seen the trailer for it and I know it's going to be shit from the song choice.
Yeah, I'm gonna take my horse to the old town road. I'm gonna ride till I can't no more.
This song does not fit the tone of the franchise, which is why I'm fucking excited for this pile of pandering shit. Thank fuck this film followed the same ridiculous tone as the previous one. It's terrible, it's gory, but it's fun for a lot of it. The first half is Taken, but in Mexico, then it's gory Home Alone. That's about as much as I can say without spoiling the plot. But who cares about that when we all know explosions and violent stabbings is why we'd bother seeing it. The film starts with Rambo at his childhood home, which is where we left him in the end of the last film. We then meet this young girl and her nan, but at no point is it really explained who they are. They live in Rambo's old house, so I assume they were just living there. Then he just turns up, lives with them for a decade, building tunnels under their house. Very weird thing to have under your house, so how do they justify this massive maze of tunnels that he has single-handedly built in just a decade? Well, first of all, the girl has a party and Rambo says they can go in the tunnels, even though nobody is allowed in the tunnels, not even the Mexican lady who lives there. Putting aside a dark, dusty tunnel that looks like a mineshaft being one of the worst fucking places to have an enjoyable party, how would you explain the existence of this tunnel to your friends and even convince them to go in there, since it looks like the pedo dungeon from The Lovely Bones? She says he's crazy, and that's it. They never justify it being there ever again, so that is the only reason. He's crazy. I kind of assumed the reason he went home was to have a nice quiet life in the countryside. It's a little bit weird to see him digging away even though it was triggering some Vietnam flashbacks. Well, enough about that. Let's follow the plot again. The girl wants to find her dad who lives in Mexico just so she can ask why he left. Which sounds like one of those lines you'd say to be cool, but she actually meant it literally. She gets to his door because her Mexican friend managed to track him down somehow, then asks why he left. Literally the first thing she said, no hi, how are you? But it's probably a good thing she started with that because it turns out he's a real cunt. She gets taken clubbing because she's sad, gets roofied by some cartel guy, and now she's a sex slave. One day in Mexico and she's involved with criminals and rapists. Rambo finds out, so heads to Mexico to threaten the dad, then he threatens the girl's Mexican friend because she was wearing her bracelet. He gets taken to the club, then pulls out a man's rib with his hands. It was gruesome and I loved it. He goes to the bad guys, but they beat the shit out of him, mark his face with a V, then say they're gonna fuck up the girl because he came after her. The problem I have with this scene is that I find it hard enough understanding Stallone since he looks like someone who's been punched in the face for decades. And now his character has been brutally assaulted, making him sound even more like a stroke victim. He does get fixed up a bit by some woman who was following him at the club, and the way they introduced the character, I would have thought she'd have more to do. She was watching him for a while, then saved his life, but we only get one more short scene of her. Once he recovers, he hammers some people to death, which was quite underwhelming as it wasn't as vicious as the rib pulling. But something I did like was he tells the sex slaves to run, but they don't as they're too scared of the consequences. It was a little detail, but it kind of asks, is he doing the right thing? Of course he's doing the right thing, as he finds the girl all drugged up and looking like a very unenthusiastic sex slave. They drive back home, but unfortunately she dies on the way, then gets buried next to the graves of Rambo's parents. Obviously this means he needs to make traps on his farms. It's his rampage time. He visits that woman for the last time so she can bring him to where the cartel guy who cut the V into his face lives, then just decapitates him off screen. I would have preferred to see that, as they had a good few knife kills on faceless goons leading up to it. Instead we just see him drop the head in the road on his way back home. But there was something odd about one of the shots. They showed the border fence and I feel like that's trying to tell me something. The rest of the film is the gory Home Alone bit, since he has lots of spiky traps in tunnels. He kills about 20 men with lots of varying traps, and for some reason he was always really close to each trap going off. He would hear the scream of his victim, then he'd shoot them in the face. I'm not complaining since I found it very funny, but it was very much overkill, especially if he was using the shotgun since it made people explode. They go for the same kind of CG brutality as the previous film, which would be fine if they used it sparingly, but the overuse made the poor quality noticeable, and even more noticeable with the fake fire. Still funny though, and I found the CG used for when they blew up the tunnel very funny as it looked dreadful. But who gives a shit about all of that when you end with a guy being pinned to a wall with 4 arrows, then getting stabbed in the chest, only to get his still beating heart pulled out like Temple of Doom? I'd say it was the perfect way to end a ridiculously violent film. Finally, it has come to an end, and it's been quite the explosively masculine experience. And after 4 decades, this weirdly athletic 73-year-old man can rest, as for the first time in 5 films, he's been allowed to sit down in his rocking chair while the credits roll.